Okay. Hi, everyone. We are the Advanced Branding Collaborative. It is September 16th. And tonight we were going to be speaking about positive communication with Wendy Musch and Jenny Kalz. So thank you for doing the presentation.
Okay. Well,
So,
go ahead. Sorry,
I was going to say, did we want to introduce ourselves first, or do you want to just get into it and introduce at the end? It's up to you.
Well, I was going to say, how about if we all know each other. So how about if we just say one thing that we are grateful for tonight, our name and one thing we're grateful for. So Erin, you're in my top left corner of my screen. Would you like to just say your first name and something you're grateful for?
Yeah, my name is Aaron, and I am, sounds really bland, but I'm grateful for pretty much everything that I have, because pretty much like I always tell people with our cell phones, people don't notice how much is in our cell phones compared to how cell phones were back in the day, compared to how it was before people had cell phones. So I'm grateful pretty much with the technology, with what we have and whatnot.
Okay. Glenda, how about you? Because you're next to me on my screen.
Okay. Hi, I'm Glenda, and I am grateful for all of the new connections that I've made since COVID came in, because ever since we had to start doing it a lot more online, I've met so many wonderful people, including yourselves. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. Lori Ann, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Lori Ann. And funny enough, I guess I'm grateful, speaking of technology, I was talking about this morning, for having seen technology go basically from beginning, where you're on the 300 baud and going BBSs, to where it is today, and watching that transition, I think is just phenomenal. I am very happy and grateful for the fact that I was able to witness all of it.
Cool. Jenny, do you want to say something?
Sorry, my phone was just ringing. Hi, my name is Jenny, and I'm very grateful for nature. Just, to being able to go outside and connect with nature, just sitting down and looking at the trees and the palm trees and going for a walk at a nice lake. And yeah, I just love nature. I just love being outside.
Okay. And I'm Wendy, and I am grateful for the fact that in the grand scheme of things, I have it made, because I don't have a major illness. I'm not homeless. I have food to eat, and I have people that love me and care about me and want to help me. And I think it's all relative to us, and we get caught up in the fact that, we have tunnel vision, and we think, oh, this is horrible. This is not going well. Why is it not better, and all of that? And I just think about all the people out there, out of the 7 billion people that live on this planet, only 2.5 billion people know how to read. So it's just amazing, the things that we have to be grateful for, those of us living in North America and Australia. And so I'm just grateful that I have all the things that I have. And do I have everything I want? Of course I don't. Is everything going exactly the way that I want it to? Of course it's not. But there's always somebody out there somewhere who has it way worse than you can possibly imagine. So I'm just grateful for everything that I have, kind of like Erin said. So, and with that, we will go ahead and get started with our presentation. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have to remember I'm going to share videos, so I need to remember to click the share computer sound button. There we go. Okay. And I had the wrong one up, of course, to begin with. So Jenny and I are going to be presenting on positive communication. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I will be talking about active listening and nonverbal communication. So before I actually start doing that, though, I want to play a little clip for you about active listening. Yeah, I probably should do this. You guys need to let me know if you can hear it okay.
Ball players nowadays, very peculiar names.
Funny names?
Nicknames, pet names.
Not as funny as my name, Sebastian Dinwiddie.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Funnier than that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Now, on the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second. I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
You know the fellas' names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The fellow playing first base for St. Louis.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, who is on first?
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who is on first?
Have you got a first baseman on first?
Certainly.
Then who's playing first?
Absolutely.
When you pay off the first baseman every month, who gets the money?
Every dollar of it. Why not? The man's entitled to it.
Who is?
Yes.
So who gets it?
Why shouldn't he? Sometimes his wife comes down and collects it.
Whose wife?
Yes. After all, the man earns it.
Who does?
Absolutely.
Well, all I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
Oh, no. What is on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, don't change the players.
I'm not changing nobody.
Take it easy.
What's the guy's name on first base?
What's the guy's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking about him.
How did I get on third base?
You mentioned his name.
If I mention a third baseman's name, who did I say is playing third?
No, who's playing first?
Stay off of first, will you?
Well, what do you want me to do?
Now, what's the guy's name on third base?
What's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third.
There I go, back on third again.
Well, I can't change their names.
Will you please stay on third base, Mr. Broadhurst?
Now, what is it you want to know?
What is the fella's name on third base?
What is the fella's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know. Third base. You got an outfield?
Oh, sure.
St. Louis has got a good outfield?
Absolutely.
The left fielder's name?
Why?
I don't know. I just thought I'd ask you.
Well, I just thought I'd tell you.
Then tell me who's playing left field.
Who is playing first?
Stay out of the infield.
Don't mention their names out here.
I want to know what's the fella's name in left field.
What is on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who is on first?
I don't know. Third base.
Oh, take it easy. Take it easy.
Priceless.
Okay.
Love it.
So when you guys first heard that, did you when at the very beginning, did you hear what he said? Anybody? No? He said every baseball team, players have nicknames. And that's what and then he went on to talk about who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third, why is in left field. So I don't know which one is which. Is Abbott the heavy one? Does anybody know? Anyway, the heavy set guy, he did not listen at the very beginning of that. I mean, I know it's a comedy shtick, but it's just an example of, had he listened to what Costello said, he would have known exactly what the conversation was going to be about. But because he didn't listen at the very beginning, it all became very just a big mess, big cluster. Because then it went from there. One was trying to say, yes, this is who's on, first base and all of that, but he couldn't get past that because he didn't listen at the very beginning. So that's just kind of how important it is for us to listen and pay attention to what people are saying so that we know what's happening in the conversation and we know where it's going. So it's a big part of active listening is to be present. Do not multitask. Do not try to type an email and talk to someone and listen to someone at the same time. Do not take notes. I mean, if you're listening to a lecture, then yes, you should be taking notes. But don't be writing things down, you know, when you're having a conversation with a friend or a loved one, because they need to know that they are your center of attention when you're trying to have a conversation with them. No pontificating, okay? They probably just want you to listen. They don't necessarily want you to fix it. So they don't want you to sit there and give them this big diatribe of what they need to do and how they need to do it and all of that. They just want you to listen. Use open-ended questions. Who, what, when, where, why, how. That shows them that you are really listening to what they're saying. Because if you're just doing, yeah, mm-hmm, oh, really? You know, it makes it seem like to you, you are involved and a, you know, active part of the conversation, but you're really not. And it's pretty obvious to the person that's talking, especially if you're talking to them for any length of time, that you're really not paying attention. You're just trying to appease them by saying a well-placed or oh really, or something like that. So go with the flow. Thoughts are going to come into your head while someone's talking to you. You need to let them go out. Don't focus on them. As soon as you have a thought that's coming into your brain, try and let it go just as quickly. And so as we're going through these, I'm sure these weren't the things that you thought I was going to talk about. But I wanted to not necessarily do the canned examples of active listening. You know, provide eye contact, nod your head, those kinds of things. I wanted it to go a little bit deeper than that. If you don't know, then say you don't know. You know, if they said something and you really didn't catch it, but they're asking you a question about what they said and you're, you know, basically you've been caught red-handed, not paying attention, then you just need to say that. Say, I'm really sorry, I got distracted. Can you please tell me what it was you said? And then pick up the conversation again from there. Don't equate your experience with their experience. Your experience is not their experience. Yes, maybe you can relate to it. Maybe you can empathize with it or sympathize with it, but their experience is their own experience. And you shouldn't be telling them about yours at the same time that they're trying to tell you about theirs. Remember, it's about them. It's not about you. Try not to repeat yourself. You know, again, if you're repeating things over and over, then they're realizing that they're not important enough for you to pay attention to and to really focus on what they're saying. Stay out of the weeds. Stay on the topic at hand. Again, paying attention to what they're saying. Don't go off on tangents, you know, trying to, you know, be part of that pontificating or trying to get your own stuff in there. Just focus on what they're saying and what they need from you. And of course, listen. You really need to listen. It is very hard to do that. The average person speaks at 225 words per minute. The average brain processes 500 words per minute. So it's very easy for you to go off on tangents because they're not talking fast enough. You're processing way faster than they can talk. So therefore, you're already off on something else, or you're thinking, oh, this is what they're going to say next. Well, then they don't say that, and then you're kind of sitting there like, uh-oh, I'm not paying attention. I don't know what they're talking about. So really try hard to just listen to what they're saying and not, you know, that's when those thoughts that come in your mind, you need to just let them go. And last but not least, be brief. if you're going to say something, be brief. They should be the ones that are talking right now. So it's kind of like having a good, active conversation, positive conversation with someone. It's kind of like a mini skirt. Long enough to be brief enough to still maintain interest, but not so long that, oh shoot, I just lost it, went right out of my head. Oh, be long enough to cover the topic, but short enough to maintain interest. That's what it is. So, hey, I just ruined my whole punchline there. Sorry about that, guys. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments about that? About active listening?
Yeah, I want to add something. When I did my NLP course, we did a process called the iceberg process. And it's basically a practice of deep listening and compassionate listening, because it's usually someone says they have a problem and they just tell you the problem. They say, oh, I think my husband doesn't love me anymore, or something like that. But basically what we're seeing is only the peak of the iceberg. And the more we listen to people, the deeper they go on the iceberg, the deeper they go under the surface. So the real things that are actually troubling them or they're suffering from, they lie way, way, way deeper. So we basically sat with people for 2 hours and just listened to them. And when I had my process, I didn't think I could talk about something that was troubling me for 2 hours, but I did, because there's something, always coming up. There's something else coming up. And it's just sort of a process of emptying out. And it's really, really healing when you do that, because then you're not suppressing your emotions anymore. And the more you let go of it, the more will come to the surface, and the more you get, to talk about it, and the more the other person gets to listen and to practice their non-judgment, basically. Because this is why we're not actually listening very deeply, because we're always trying to fix the other person or fix their belief system. But when we practice non-judgment, then we are healing ourselves as well, because the less we judge other people, the less we're judging ourselves.
Exactly. I just said exactly. Yep.
Yes. So this is what Thich Nhat Hanh said as well. Deep listening simply means listening with compassion, even if the other person is full of wrong perceptions. If you think they're, not doing the right thing, and so on. Discrimination, blaming, judging, and criticizing, you are still capable of sitting quietly and listening without interrupting. Because you know that if you can listen like that, the other person will feel enormous relief. You remember that you are listening with only one purpose in mind: to give the other person a chance to express themselves and also to relieve their suffering. And it's just an amazing experience to be really, really heard. When someone just sits there and just listens to you, and you feel like you're really being heard, and that's like amazing experience and really very healing.
Mm-hmm.
There was just quickly somebody who said something, and I love the saying. It says, just remember that God made us with 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
And another part of conversation, people, instead of listening, people are just waiting until they can reply. They're waiting so that they can say what they want to say.
Exactly.
And so, and the other thing too is, if you are a good listener, you are listening not only to what's being said, but you're listening to what's not being said. That is the real gift of a true listener, is to be able to listen to what's actually said without putting in your own prejudices, biases, judgment, and to listen to what the person is not saying, so that when you do have the opportunity to respond back, you can say things about what's not said, to get down even deeper into what is, what the topic at hand is. So,
and if you really have some, comments that you want to add, just wait until the person is finished talking. They really, said everything they wanted to say, and then ask them, would you like me to, give you some comments on that? Or, just ask them for permission if they actually want to hear your advice. Because sometimes we don't actually want to hear anything. We just want to talk. We just want to be heard. And that's it.
right, exactly. And you need to really show the person that you're working with or listening to, do a little bit of paraphrasing back of what they're saying every so often. That gives them, the feeling of, oh, it gives them a very positive feeling. It gives them a feeling of hope that, okay, I am being listened to. I am being heard. This person's not just sitting there, oh yeah, okay, sure, yeah, all right. And then as soon as there's a break in the conversation, you take a breath, the other person is ready to do word vomit, and that it's just very discouraging and very defeating to the person who really may need to be heard. They that may be their need at that moment, is to be heard, not to be told what to think, what to say, how to feel, not to be told what to do. Just listen. Not, oh, I can fix it for you. That's not. And men are notorious for wanting to fix things, because men are fixers. And so when there's a man out there who really listens to what someone has to say, I think it's very empowering. It's very encouraging and enlightening to have a man actually be able to listen without any expectation of consequence or change in the situation. So, all right. Well, so that's kind of active listening in a nutshell. I didn't want to sit here and, pontificate about, all of the deep, dark things about active listening. We're just kind of giving, an overview, but try and think about these things the next time that you have a conversation with a friend or a loved one, or even a business acquaintance. Think, how can I really listen to what that person is saying, and make sure that person knows that I appreciate what they have to say, and I'm invested in what they're saying, and that I want to see them succeed and be happy. And so the next thing, I'm sure you guys have all seen a chart like this of some kind or another, but words are only 7% of communication. Any kind of communication, positive or negative communication. The actual words that are being said are 7%. 38% is how you say it. So that's like the pitch of your voice, the tone of your voice, the pace of the words you're saying. Are you talking really fast? Are you talking really slow? When people talk really slow, sometimes it's because they want to make sure that you are really hearing what they have to say, or because they might be really upset. And so they want you to know that. If people talk really fast, it's because, they're probably really nervous and they don't know what to say. So they'll just start saying everything as fast as they can, because they know then that people that don't really have to listen to exactly the words that they're saying. Volume, of course, if your volume's really high, you're either really nervous or you might be really mad. If you're speaking really low, you might be intimidated and you don't want people to hear, what you're saying. The emotion, the detail, that kind of thing. And then 55% of conversation is nonverbal. So that's whether you're giving them direct eye contact, the posture that you are representing, that you're exhibiting, the gestures you're making, and then your facial expression. Your facial expression is probably the biggest key to communication. people will look at your face to see exactly what your attitude is, how interested you are. And so all of that stuff plays into positive communication. So written word, it's very difficult to get the tone and the interest and all of that, because we can't see any of that when we write things. So it's very, very important, if you are a written communicator, that you think about what you're saying and that you go back and look at it, reread it, maybe make some changes to it, so that you can make sure that the tone that you want to get across is what's actually being interpreted by the other person. I know there are a lot of people out there who just rattle off emails or rattle off text messages and send them. And then it's like, they don't think about how the other person might be interpreting it. And it's really unfortunate, because if there's any conversation that we need to kind of edit or think about before we do it, it's written communication. Because when we're talking to people, we can go back and say, oh, based on their nonverbal reaction, we can go back and say, oh, that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say this, or I meant it to be this way or that way. But we have no control over their interpretation when it's written, and we can't go back really quickly and change what, put a fine point on what we're trying to say. So there are 8 types of nonverbal communication. There's kinesics, or your body movements. There's proxemics, so closeness or personal space. Different people have different personal space requirements. The average is 3 feet. Some people like it to be more, and some people like it to be less. I have a really good friend who, her personal space requirement is about 1.5 feet. And so I will have conversations with her, and if we're standing, by the time we're done with the conversation, I will have made my way completely around the room, trying to increase the personal space with her. She's a wonderful woman and I love her dearly, but she likes to be about 1 foot in front of my face. And it's very disconcerting to me. And so the other part of that is closeness, in terms of, you can always tell when people like being together, because they will tend to face the other person when they're talking to them. So if you're sitting in chairs side by side, you will turn your body towards that person. Maybe you'll cross your leg. Especially if you're a female, when you cross your leg, you'll cross your leg towards that person. You'll lean into that person. So it's always good to look at that to see how people are conversing with you. How much does someone like you? Well, you can tell by how close they are to you as to how much they like you or not. And it's not just the personal space, it's also, those other little nuanced behaviors that they do. Posture, if someone is all slumped in the chair listening to you, they're just looking at the ceiling, or they're sitting back with their head back, and they're slumped all the way back. They're probably not that interested in what you have to say. But if they're sitting up, straight, and maybe they're leaning in towards you a little bit, maybe they put their chin on their hand, with their elbow on the armrest, and they're looking at you intently and maybe nodding a little bit, giving you, a look of interest, that tells you a lot about how interested they actually are. Now, one thing I will say is, you can't always, people talk about, well, if they sit there cross-armed like this, that means that they're defensive and they're not interested, and yada, yada. Well, it's possible that's true, but you can't just look at someone's posture in that respect and make an assumption as to how interested they are in what you have to say. Because, for example, I'll take myself. I am cold all of the time. Summer, fall, winter, spring, I'm cold. So when I cross my arms over my body, it's because I'm trying to hug myself and keep warm. It has nothing to do with how much I like you, dislike you, how interested I am in our conversation or not. So don't look at posture in that respect and make an assumption based on that, because, you know, someone just might be cold. It might have nothing to do with anything else other than that. Eye contact. It's really important for you to look at someone that's talking to you. That's one of the biggest indicators. That and facial expressions are the two biggest indicators to people of your disinterest in what they have to say. Or, you know, and maybe you're interested in what they have to say, but you're, you know, you're rolling your eyes because you don't agree with them or whatever. So it's very off-putting to people for you to use that kind of, to use eye contact as a way of judging what they're saying or judging them as a person. Touch. How did you start out the conversation? Did you start out the conversation putting your fingertips on their arm, shaking their hand, giving them a hug? You know, some people really like touch when they communicate. And obviously, if you walk up to someone and punch them, you know, that's probably a good indication that, you know, you're not very happy about talking with them at that point. But, you know, if you're doing positive contact, positive touch, you know, that's a good indication of that you want to engage in a meaningful conversation with them. Paralanguage or paralinguistics, that is everything about your voice. So like we talked about before, it's your tone, it's your pitch, it's the volume of your voice. And that's also a very good indicator of how engaged you are in the conversation. People can tell right away by your paralanguage whether you're going to have positive communication with them or negative communication with them. And then the other big indicator is your facial expressions. Rolling of your eyes. Oh, paralanguage also includes sighing, you know. Like, okay, I have to listen to this again. So facial expressions, you can say a lot with your eyes. You can say a lot with your, you know, your cheeks, you know, big smile, frown on your face, you know, puppy dog eyes, all that kind of stuff gives people a really good indication of the attitude you have going into the conversation and as the conversation progresses. Physiology, you know, all the things. Are you getting up and moving around when you're talking? Are you sitting still? Are you, you know, all that kind of movement kind of stuff. That's all part of nonverbal communication. And I just put where I got my information from. But so I can sit here and I can talk to you about this stuff all day long, but I found a really great video that kind of gives you really good concrete examples of each of these. And I am going to share it with you. So let's see. And it just happens to be, okay, I can't get the, okay. Oh. Did it close on me? Here it is. All right, the cast of friends telling you about the importance of nonverbal cues.
No one told you life was gonna be this way. Your job's a joke, you broke your love.
I'm pregnant. And Dad, you're the father, by the way, but you got it.
Your job's a joke, you broke. Your love life's the away.
No, I could get him to forgive us.
I don't know.
I'm telling you. I can do it.
Yeah, he can do it.
Oh.
It's like you're always stuck in second gear.
He was like this crazy-eyed, hairy beast man. He was like a Bigfoot or a Yeti or something. Hi, just so you know, we didn't mean to fog you. We actually thought you were like a Yeti or something. Hi.
So you like the short hair better?
What? Yeti? Danny?
When it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year, but
Phoebes? Hello? Phoebe?
burned your breakfast so far, things are going great. Your mother warned you there'd be days like these, but you didn't.
Let's put aside the fact that you accidentally picked up my grandmother's ring and you accidentally proposed to Rachel.
When people do this, I don't really know what that means.
I'm sorry.
When it hasn't.
So I just thought that that was kind of a good way to show what some of the different nonverbal communication examples are, and just kind of make it really hit home. So, I guess I need to keep going, don't I? Oh, guys, it's been such a rough day. I don't know if I'm coming or going today.
I just want to add, the good thing is that when we know that a certain posture or a certain facial expression or something is connected to a certain behavior, like being bored or being, depressed or being sad or unhappy, then we also know that we can change that posture and we can change that expression, and then we can create another emotion. So if we sit up straight and, we feel more confident as like sitting, like this and looking down, like, when we change our physiology, we can change our behavior.
Yeah. Right. I like it. You guys aren't seeing the screen still, are you? Okay. Yes, we can always change our state if we want to. We can do something that we need to uncross our leg and recross our other leg, or, try and sit up a little bit straighter, or, maybe even say, let's just sit here for a second and relish what we've got going on, and then jump back into it again with renewed spirit and energy. So that is all that I have, and I'm going to share my screen again, and I will let Jenny take it away with her portion. Does anybody else have anything they want to add or ask about? Okay. All right, Jenny. There you go.
All right, I'm going to talk about cause and effect again because it's my favorite topic. So basically, you can live by cause and effect. So when you're living at cause, you're taking responsibility for your own actions. And the sad thing is that I would say probably at least 80% of the people are not living at cause, or even more, and not taking responsibility for their own actions and starting to blame others for the things that happening to them, or where they are at life. They're saying, you know, I'm there because this happened to me, or this person did this to me, but they're not looking at, you know, what have I done, or what can I actually do to change that? Because when we're looking inside ourselves instead of outside ourselves, we take back the power. Then we have the power to change. Because some people, they always, you know, look outside of themselves in order to create their life, basically. But when you get, you know, to a point where you take responsibility for your actions, you also realize you are the creator of your reality and you can change things around. So basically, when we're at course, we're proactive, we take action, we see opportunities. Because sometimes when we're at effect, we don't see any opportunities because we're feeling powerless, we're feeling hopeless, we're feeling that nothing will ever change because I can't change it around. So we feel like we have no choice, and we're making excuses, and we're feeling like we're being victims to our circumstances. And when we're living a course, we're feeling like we are Bella's just talking. We're feeling like we're leading ourselves and we can make things happen. Why is that important for communication? Basically, we can avoid a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, when everyone just takes responsibility for their own action. Because then we don't have these, you know, fights where we like, oh, you did this and this made me angry and you did this to me and you shouldn't have done that, you should have done it another way. And when we stop doing that and just look at what can we do to change the situation, we actually avoiding a lot of fights. And I think that's really important for positive communication, that we take responsibility for what we do, and we're not judging other people and blaming other people for what they are doing. All right. Do you have any questions for cause and effect? Oh, you put that in as well. Cool. Awesome. So when I'm at cause, I influence and take responsibility for everything that happens in my life. And that means, like I said, I can change everything that happens in my life because I'm in charge of my life. Whereas when I'm at effect, my life is random and I can't affect or control anything what others say or do. So I'm always at mercy of other people. I'm always looking for what other people are doing because they basically controlling my life. And when we come back to cause, we come back in charge and we gain back our power. And then this is called a constructive feedback sandwich. And I think that's really important in the workplace, but also when you work with someone, you know, when you're like, when you're a coach or you're working with someone online. How do you give criticism, or I wouldn't actually call it criticism, how do you give feedback? And we call that the feedback sandwich. So basically what you do is you say 2 positive things, then you give 1 point for improvement, and then you say another positive. Because basically what most of us are used to in the workplace, they call you in and say for your annual performance thing, and they just tell you what you've done wrong or what you need to do better. But they're not really telling you, we think you've done that really great and this is like awesome what you did. They just tell you, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, you know, you have to improve in this part. And they basically don't tell you what you're actually doing right. Because most of the things we're actually doing right, there might be just, you know, a little percentage that we need to improve. But what our brain does, we automatically focus on these small percentages where we're not doing, you know, we're not doing as well as we could. So this technique will really help the person you're giving him feedback to not feeling judged, to not feeling like you want to sort of change everything they're doing. It will just give them an overview of what they're doing right, what is very, very well done, and then 1 point they can improve on. So yeah, I love this feedback sandwich. It's like one of my favorite things. because it really points out the positives as well.
Has anyone else heard of the feedback sandwich?
Yeah, I think it's a great technique to use, especially in the workplace. I think a lot of workplaces should adopt this kind of feedback strategy. So the employees will be actually doing the right thing, because that's what I found in my workplaces. It's just tell you, oh, you shouldn't do this. You need to improve on that. You can't do this, but they're not telling you, are you doing this well? Bella. Yeah, that's it for me.
I think it's really important when you are a manager, a supervisor, or in a leadership role that you give your employees feedback, positive feedback or recognition, and don't just always call them into your office to tell them what they've done wrong or what they need to change. You know, so that way then when you do need to give them feedback like that, they aren't automatically upset, you know, and thinking the worst, because you've been in there many times, you know, they've been in many times and gotten some really good feedback and some recognition and all that. And so now, you know, when you do need to give them, you know, some constructive feedback, they're, you know, they're not immediately thinking the worst.
Just quickly, I do have to, sorry, I was just going to say, I remember my sister even says it now. We're in our 50s, and still when our boss used to say, I need to see you in the office, just your heart just goes, because we've been so conditioned that you rarely get that encouragement. You primarily get called into the office if you've done something wrong. And since you're a child at school, it's the same thing. So it's not something, it's ingrained from the time you're a child, and it continues on. So we've had to try and get rid of those limiting beliefs, you know.
Very true.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, is Clara with us?
I see her name there, but I'm not
yes,
sure.
I'm so awfully sorry. I'm so sorry I'm late. I didn't expect it to happen, and I was looking forward to it all week, and then oh gosh, I am awfully sorry. Just a moment, I'm just gonna fix my screen here.
Well, we all understand that life happens.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a mom of 4, so like it's sometimes so unpredictable, and as much as oh gosh, my video doesn't want to go on. As much as I don't like to admit it. Oh, do you see me now?
Yes, we see you. Okay.
As much as I don't like to admit it, I can't always be on top of things. You're like juggling all the stuff, and it's just, I'm still human.
Well, welcome. We can always finish off with your 5-minute spotlight if you want to let us know, and welcome to the group.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else that is going to talk, or that's already I've come to the end of the hour, huh?
You have. So,
okay.
All right, Clara, why don't you give us, because we are at the top of the hour, but if you want to give us your 5-minute and just tell us about, I know that you're a parenting coach, and you're new to our group. So like I said, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I was raised in a tiny village outside of Montreal in Canada, in a very isolated and a cult-like community. I was supposed to follow 100 different rules every day. And at a young age, I had an arranged marriage. And after I got married, I was supposed to shave my head every month. There were a lot of different rules, and all those rules weren't even the hard part, because once you are raised with it, right, it's like it becomes part of you. But the real hard part was all the guilt that was put in us, like so much fear that God is going to punish you for every little misstep, you know? Do you
Oh,
see
no, we
me?
can
Oh,
still see you.
sorry, my screen went off for some reason. So that's why I'm so passionate to help parents, because I know that feeling of like feeling you're not good enough, you messed up, and feeling so awful because you want the best for your kids, right? And I myself have been through a very challenging journey because I have 4 kids. My oldest now is 21. And yeah, and we left that community over a decade ago, my husband and I, together with our kids. It was a very traumatic journey because our kids were almost taken away by the community. We had police break down our door. It was very, really, how to call it, a challenging situation, because what this, like, it's a little bit like Scientology. They're very sophisticated in their tactics. So they just made a claim against us that we're abusive, and just to be able to give the kids to the family that's left behind, you know? So that's, yeah, that was a whole different journey. So that's basically why I'm so passionate about helping parents. And I recently started my coaching business. I've been doing it for years out of passion, just as a hobby. And only since February of 2019 that I started like groundwork of my business. I've never done an online business, so I'm still building.
Excellent. So,
So
anybody have any
Clara,
questions?
well, oh, she's frozen. Oh, I thought she was frozen. Clara, can you tell us your whole name?
So my legal name is Clara Wasserstein.
Okay.
And my Hebrew name, because this is like a cult-like community from the ultra-Orthodox Jewish faction, and it's called Hasidic. There's a
I was
whole,
going to ask
yeah,
you if you were a Hasidic Jew. Okay.
yeah, there's a whole mini-series on Netflix that came out now during COVID that a little bit describes the experiences, like when somebody wants to leave. Like it's just the tip of the iceberg, but it gives you a bit of a picture.
What's it called?
The community where I come from is called Curious Tush.
No, I meant the Netflix series. If people were.
Oh, the Netflix series is called Unorthodox.
Oh, Unorthodox. Okay. And so then to go along with that, so what you say you're a parenting coach? What does that entail? In your world, what are you coaching parents on?
So I'm coaching parents self-love, how to replace self-blame with self-compassion, to create better and healthy boundaries. For me, healthy boundaries basically saved my life, because if I hadn't miraculously came across a book about building healthy boundaries, which basically started paving the path for me to stop living like a doormat, right? Because I was so submissive to like I was such a devout follower. I used to write songs to encourage others about the glorious lifestyle. Like I was so passionate about this and believing that this is the highest way of human being can live, you know? So yeah.
So how did you get out of it, or what made you decide, considering that you said you thought it was the most
That is a great question. My husband is.
Your husband what?
We're getting cut off.
Oh.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So my husband is a very avid reader from a very young age, and he never took things face value. He's a very he's a visionary. He sees things with a broader perspective, the outside of the box thinker. So he really opened my eyes about a lot of stuff while we were still inside, and he really wanted his kids to have a better life. And I didn't even know what he wants from me. Like, what do you mean children need a good childhood? What for? The only reason we're here is to have paradise, you know? Like, there's no point in having a happy childhood. That's not the goal, you know? It was a very slow and it was a very difficult evolution because he needed to be very patient with me. He knew that I cared for our kids just as much as him, but I was so close-minded, you know?
Wow. That's really interesting.
So how can people find you?
So on my Facebook page, I have a link actually to my Patreon page where I explain a little bit of the work that I do, because I do help a lot of people who also want to leave. So I've been helping for the last decade since we left. We helped actual families who also followed suit what we did, thanks to our support. So it's really very important work. Alongside my coaching, I also do a lot of that. I help and guide and support, moral support, and sometimes with resources, like to connect them to the people that can help them financially or legally, whatever is necessary for their journey.
Clara, what is that Facebook page that you have? Or is it on your personal one?
Yes, it's my personal Clara Wasserstein. And you have the link to my Patreon page. You have the link to my social media, like the Instagram and wherever I put. Like I also have a Facebook group that's called Radical Self-Love Community, and you are there, yeah. And I love that you joined it.
Perfect.
Okay, so Radical Self-Love Community is a Facebook group that you have. Okay.
That's right.
Very good.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much, Claire. Really appreciate you making it on. I know it was a little bit late, but you caught us right at the end. Perfect. Any more questions from anybody?
I deeply appreciate that you still gave me a chance, because I didn't expect it. I thought I'm just jumping on at least to hear other people, you know?
No problem. And when you watch the replay, you'll see we made a quick introduction about what we're grateful for. So before we leave, do you want to quickly say what you're grateful for?
You want me to say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just quickly.
I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity, because I thought it's the last case. I've lost my chance, you know?
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a
Erin
good week,
and Glenn.
everyone.
Take care. Have a great evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.